If you are not yet a member of the Patreon, link is in the description. Please consider becoming a member, as you will have access to many videos you cannot find here on YouTube.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.
In past public statements, as in 2017 speeches and interviews, you described Pizzagate as a baseless conspiracy theory.
I'm done with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home. This is just typical behavior.
We will go off the record.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So I would like to understand how that's permissible.
It doesn't matter. We all are abiding by the same rules.
I will take that down.
Yeah,
So
well,
I would like to take a break at this moment.
yeah,
and I'd like to have
I'm
a
done.
conversation.
Oh, but it gets a whole lot spicier. Welcome back to another episode of Didi Got a Podcast. I'm your host, Didi. I appreciate you all for tuning in. If you have yet to see the deposition that Secretary Hillary Clinton just gave, you are going to be in for a treat. But even if you have seen it, I would recommend that you stick around, because when Hillary Clinton gets questioned about Pizzagate and all these other terms, I have some information about the Epstein files and Pizzagate that many of you all probably do not know as of yet. And I want to tell you why I believe that this deposition that both Hillary Clinton and President Bill Clinton just gave are distractions. So hit the like button on your way in. And without further ado, let's tap into it.
Ask the question. I'm going to answer your question.
Now yell
This
at
was
me?
what I spent
You're
my
going to yell at me.
time doing.
I'm a survivor trying to look out for other survivors, trying to
and
protect
I
them.
was taking care of
Wait,
the
6
people
months
who
here today,
3,000
6 months,
lives.
and now
Yielding is nice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, thank you for returning this afternoon. Secretary Clinton, is your husband someone the committee should investigate?
My husband will be here tomorrow. You'll have a chance to ask him questions.
So my question is your husband someone this committee should investigate?
Asked and answered.
Apparently you are. You've subpoenaed him. He's going to be here tomorrow.
In your testimony before the break, you discussed why you believe President Trump should testify before our committee due to a, quote, pattern of behavior, end quote. You testified that a pattern of behavior warrants accountability. So I want to make sure I understand your standard correctly. The pattern of behavior you describe includes being held civilly liable, indictments, sexually deviant behavior, correct?
Yes.
In 1998, your husband was found civilly liable for misconduct with Paula Jones and settled for $850,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
By your standard of pattern of behavior, should your husband testify before this committee?
He is testifying tomorrow.
On December 19th, 1998, President Clinton was impeached on charges of perjury and obstruction of justice, which directly related to his extramarital affair with Monica Lewinsky. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your husband was impeached for perjury related to sexual behavior, correct?
I didn't understand what you said.
Your husband was impeached for perjury related to sexual behavior, his sexual behavior.
He was impeached for several reasons, and then was acquitted in the Senate.
Okay, I see what's going on here. So basically what they're doing is they're using Hillary's own words and her own logic against her. So in other words, they've been calling for Donald Trump to be called into deposition as well, which I do agree that he should be called in for deposition as well, but we'll get to that here in a moment. But basically what they're doing is the reason why she said that Donald Trump should be called into deposition, they're applying that same logic to President Bill Clinton, and they're trying to see if Hillary Clinton is going to be consistent. And she is answering like a politician.
And your husband flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane 17 to 26 times, correct?
He made several trips with different legs on the trip, as I recall.
But he flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane
Yes, he
17 to
did.
26 times. Were you aware that Secret Service was dropped on some of those flights?
That is not my understanding.
Where they were not on some of those flights?
That is not my
So
understanding.
your understanding is that Secret Service was on all of the flights that President Clinton was on?
That is
with
my
Epstein?
understanding.
By this standard of behavior, multiple credible accusers, including Juanita Broderick, who alleged rape against your husband was disbarred in Arkansas, lost his law license before the Supreme Court, flew on Epstein's plane dozens of times, visited Epstein's island.
That is not true. That is absolutely untrue.
Well, there's documentation in the DOJ files. I'm not sure you're aware, your attorneys have told you, but Jeffrey Epstein told one of the victims to lie to investigators, to lie that Bill Clinton was ever on Epstein Island. I can provide that document to your
We would like
attorneys.
that document, please.
Yeah,
Okay,
counsel,
I can do
because
that.
actually the files say just the Epstein himself denied he was out.
These are FBI notes from an interview with a victim, and I can get you the victim number and the case number and the files. These are notes from a 302
If
interview.
you'd like those, are you going to provide those now?
That's not my line of questioning. She brought it up, but I have a
I'm
document I
sorry,
can get to
you're
you.
making a representation as to the facts.
I didn't
of
enter
something
anything
that's
as an exhibit.
but it's factually inaccurate.
No, I can give it to you later. I can go find the document, make copies of it, and give it to you this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Okay. By your standard of pattern of behavior, according to documents released by the Department of Justice, your husband appears in photos in swimming pools, hot tubs, aboard Jeffrey Epstein's private plane with unidentified young women. We came here today and told this committee, you told this committee that a pattern of behavior demands accountability, correct?
Bingo. There it is. They're using her logic against her. But not only that, let me add before Hillary responds, and we hear what she has to say to that. Not only has President Clinton been found in the Epstein files, but the pictures that are out there are some of the most, number one, they're some of the most incriminating photos that you can have. He's in jacuzzis and he's photographed with the girl sitting in his lap. And then he has another one where he's posing with an alleged victim who I believe was maybe present for Pam Bundy's congressional hearing, but don't quote me on that. But not only that, they have portraits of President Bill Clinton in a blue dress and just other weird photos of one hanging over Epstein's bathroom toilet, right? There's a picture, a cartoon drawing. Why would Epstein have these pictures of President Bill Clinton? And if so, furthermore, why would you not be offended? When President Bill Clinton was asked about this, he seemed so not only sort of mellow about it, but he almost thought some of these things were funny. As a matter of fact, even at one point, President Clinton is seen on camera sort of sorting through the files that they shared with him of all these incriminating photos of him. And it almost looked at it as if this man was reminiscing. It looked as if he was sort of relishing in the past. And it got so bad at one point in time that I believe it was his attorney or his representative. She took the files from him once she saw how invested he was at looking at the photos and these memories. And he took it right back from her and started flipping through the pages again with this smile on his face. This is odd. This is not normal. It is also not normal when President Bill Clinton feels sort of no pressure. He feels that it's all right to openly admit that he was closer to Ghislaine Maxwell than he was Jeffrey Epstein, specifically because he was close to the Rothschilds.
She stated that President Clinton was her friend, not Epstein's friend. Is that accurate?
I'd say that it was accurate to say that I felt closer to her than him.
And for the record, why was that?
Because I had seen her more and because she was very good friends with Evelyn Rothschild and his wife Lynn, whom I knew and was in regular touch with.
President Clinton, that's not a good thing to be saying out loud.
I said that I believe the committee should call anyone who had a substantial pattern and practice of contact with Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes before they came to light.
Did your husband?
And after they came to light. You're going to have a chance to question him tomorrow.
So I'll ask you again, by the standard you just set in your own words just now, does this standard apply equally to your husband or only President Trump?
I have said that my husband has been subpoenaed. He will appear. He will answer your questions to the best of his ability, but there is no evidence whatsoever of any connection with Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, and I think that that will be obviously apparent in the questioning.
What's also interesting here, you have to give credit where it's due. I don't lean to the Democrats or the Republicans. As you all know, I think it's both two wings of the same bird. But I would like to say that it is a bit honorable that she decided to show up. She could have just been held in contempt. But not only did she choose to be a part of this, but I believe it was their choice, that being Hillary Clinton and her team, to make this a recorded session instead of making it private. So that's honorable at the very least. We can say that much. And also, I don't think we have any proof that Hillary Clinton herself had any type of relationship or dealings with Jeffrey Epstein, but instead it was her husband.
What makes you so sure of that then? I mean, he's photographed
Objection
with...
is to speculate on something that's not
Yeah,
evidence.
it is so speculative. I mean, swimming in a pool, sitting in a hot tub, there are millions of people who do that without any improper behavior or certainly committing any crimes. So
that is one of the worst things you can say as a response. No. There are not many people in this world that are seen photographed in jacuzzis as a married man with underage, in some cases potentially underage girls, or even just young women in general, even if they're of age. There are not photos of them. Not to mention that this person that you're talking about is not just any person. This was the president of the United States of America. Someone with that status, as we all know, is held to a different standard. But you're also held to a different standard because you're a married man. You're also going to be held under a different magnifying glass when you're not only in a jacuzzi, but you're in a jacuzzi on a trip with Jeffrey Epstein after this man has been convicted of some of the most heinous crimes we've ever heard of. So that's not a good look.
I
Do you think most of
uh,
the men are like your husband that did anything wrong? By were they being surrounded by young women, giving them massages on Jeffrey's private estate or private plane? Are they all innocent then?
You know,
Just
you are
because-
making assumptions in your questions that have not been proven and I don't believe are provable.
Okay.
So her argument here is you can't prove that he committed a crime. You can't prove it. I don't think that is provable that you can showcase or say definitively that President Clinton actually broke any laws here. Okay.
Why did you wait 6 months to have this hearing today or have this testimony?
You know, I've answered that. I thought that given the way that other witnesses who were subpoenaed at the same time were being treated, that there was an unfair treatment of both my husband and myself. And I thought that, especially from my perspective, I had very little, if any, information to provide you, and that I could have done it in a sworn statement, and you could have moved on to pose somebody else who might have more information that would be beneficial to your
I have two more
investigation.
questions, then we're going to pass it to Congresswoman Luna. After Jeffrey Epstein was convicted, did it concern you at all that you had taken a substantial amount of money from Jeffrey Epstein?
That's an inappropriate assumption. I did not take a substantial amount of money from Jeffrey Epstein. So far as I know, Jeffrey Epstein contributed to the joint committee that was supporting my Senate race.
Which was how much?
I believe I was told $20,000.
You don't consider $20,000 substantial?
I do not consider it relevant to me because I had no recollection that I ever knew that he gave any money to
So
the
you
joint
didn't talk to
committee.
your donors that gave $20,000 to your campaign?
My understanding of the rules back then is that there was no coordination between the committee and the campaign. So, no, I have no recollection.
But that doesn't
of
mean
knowing
you
that.
can't speak to your donors. That doesn't prohibit, the law does
Donor-
not prohibit you speaking to
But
donors.
I didn't know he was a donor. As far as I knew, he was not a donor until I learned this in
Did it
preparation
concern you at
for the
all that Glenn
testimony.
Maxwell was heavily involved with people you knew and were close to?
I knew people that I knew.
I believe Ghislaine Maxwell was present for for their daughter's wedding. I think her name is Chelsea Clinton. I'm almost positive that Ghislaine Maxwell was present for that wedding.
Her, yes, that's true.
And you just shrugged, you didn't want to look into it or
You know,
have any
nobody,
question
you know,
about it?
until her crimes were revealed and she was indicted and tried and convicted, I don't think people knew very much about at all
And
what
then
she
how do
was
you know
doing.
Howard Lutnick?
I know Howard Lutnick because when I was senator on 9/11, the firm he headed, Cantor Fitzgerald, suffered the greatest loss of life. As I recall, something like 650 of his employees were murdered by terrorists that day. Howard Lutnick missed being a victim because he was delayed dropping
know
his
that. I
child
asked
off
him,
to
you know.
kindergarten.
Or so he says. But as we know, there's a lot of let's just say convenient circumstances that took place that day around Mr. Howard Lutnick, a proven liar as it pertains to Jeffrey Epstein, but we've already covered him on the channel.
You asked the question. I'm going to answer your question.
Now you yell
This
at
was
me?
what I spent
You're
my
going to yell at
time
me.
doing.
I'm a survivor trying to look out for other survivors. trying to
and
keep the
I
bottom
was
of it.
taking care
You
of
waited
the
6
people
months
who
to
lost
get here today.
3,000
6 months,
lives
and now you're being
at World
defiant
Trade
and
Center.
intent today.
You asked me
I have
about
met
Howard
Epstein
Lutnick.
survivors. I'm a survivor myself. You have emails. You've denied that that you tried to get Jeffrey Epstein to give money to you.
I did
but
not.
Howard Lutnick was
If you
used
have
to
an
get
email
money.
with me asking Jeffrey
I
Epstein
have
for
an
money,
email from Howard Lutnick sending it to Jeff
what's my-
Epstein and his
what's-
people to
I-
money
I
for
don't
you
know about-
for an event, an intimate event for you at his offices
Well,
at Cantor Fitzgerald. You're
look,
here
if you-
today
if you would
and,
let me-
and to obfuscate and say to this committee, you didn't try to get money from Jeffrey
I didn't.
Epstein when
I
there was
didn't.
an intimate event in an email that Howard Lutnick emailed to Epstein's people and Epstein to get him to come to your intimate event at Cantor Fitzgerald, a very small event. And so I'm not going to put, you want to yell at me, that's fine, but I'll yell right back.
Well,
okay? I am looking out for
it's
survivors.
very-
I'm doing
look-
the job that you would not do and refuse to do as Secretary of State. Thank you, and I yield back to
No,
Congresswoman.
I'm going to finish answering the question, which I have a right to do. I am very sympathetic to your personal situation. I have read about it. I have seen you testify or speak on the floor about it. And I very much sympathize with not only what you went through, but appreciate your effort to stand up for survivors. I was a senator representing the people who were murdered on 9/11. Nobody lost more people than Howard Lutnick. You can say whatever you want. You can call him and have him appear before the committee. But
intend
I
to.
knew him as the man who lost the employees that he knew intimately, including his brother.
And he was a
So
go-between
I
between
worked.
you and Rio.
Let her finish her
You
answer.
know what? If you don't want to hear what emotionally affected me, that's fine. But that's why I know Howard Lutnick. I went to the memorial service every 9/11 after the formal service was
I
held.
see what you're doing
with
here,
all,
and you're
with
obfuscating
all
from
of
the
his
question. He was
people, the
go-between
families.
between you and Jeffrey Epstein raising money for your
Well,
campaign.
you know, Howard Lutnick and I did work
Thank you. I will
together
now yield
because
to
we had a
Congresswoman
lot of
Luna.
victims
Thank you.
that take care of, and we worked together to rebuild downtown Manhattan. That is how I know Howard Lutnick.
And now I'm about to show you the part where Hillary Clinton was asked about Pizzagate, and I want you to see her response.
In past public statements, as in 2017 speeches and interviews, you described Pizzagate as a baseless conspiracy theory, alleging you and others ran a ring from a Washington pizzeria basement. Have you reviewed any 2025-2026 Epstein files that were released that you believe reference or relate to those specific 2016 claims regarding the Podesta emails, Comet Ping Pong Pizza used as code possibly?
I'm sorry, does
You're
this
asking
relate?
her about whether she's reviewed emails in the Epstein files, which relate to the wacky Pizzagate
You
scandal.
could characterize it however you want. I just would like to know if she's familiar with any of them.
So,
She's
excuse me,
commenting.
your question is about whether or not she has reviewed any emails in the Epstein release files about Pizzagate.
Correct.
Pizzagate was totally made up. It was an outrageous allegation that ended up hurting a number of people, that caused a deranged young man to show up with his assault rifle and shoot up a local pizzeria. I can't believe you're even referencing it.
Now, the reason why this is important, first and foremost, for those of you that don't know what Pizzagate is, a lot of people, whenever this term comes up, would like to refer to it as a debunked conspiracy theory, but I don't think it's actually been debunked at all. In fact, I'm going to allow Ian Carroll, who interviewed with Tucker Carlson, to explain in great detail. He did a great job of explaining what this was about and how it was tied to Hillary Clinton and how this whole quote-unquote conspiracy theory even got started to begin with.
Noticed that the Instagram of this pizza shop is full of very disturbing images of things like taped to tables, things like commenters talking about things like comments about rooms, and just so much disturbing imagery on a public Instagram account for a public pizza place that has photos of like Obama having pizza at it, that in these emails Podesta is talking about going and having lunch at this pizza place with all these very high level political people. And it started to get very strange. And so Pizzagate itself spiraled out into a lot of questions and concerns and genuine investigation. But then it got distorted by the media response, which felt a lot like an immune response to a dangerous virus. And the media response then packaged up all of these very legitimate questions that never got answered, and it repackaged it as these crazy people on the internet think that Hillary Clinton personally is running. She's the top, she's the head of a satanic cabal, and it's the whole thing is being run out of the basement of this pizza place. That you see, like, the absurdity of the sort of wrapper they put around this, which no one was claiming that. No one was claiming that Hillary was running it. No one was claiming that it was all out of the basement of this pizza. They were just asking a lot of questions about very legitimate, strange things. And then a very weird event happened, where as the media is running this big kind of smear campaign on these questions, a guy conveniently walks into that pizza place with an AR gun and shoots the place up. Doesn't hit anybody, but manages to shoot a bullet straight through the hard drive that's in the back room somehow, and gets arrested by police very publicly. They have a big photo shoot, and he gives a couple of sound bites as they're hauling him off that are something to the effect of, I was so convinced that it was all real and that it was all here, and it's just not, or something. And so it's like, wow, that is sure convenient that, good thing that Hillary Clinton is not personally running a giant satanic ring out of the basement of this pizzeria, which no one was alleging.
The man who terrorized people at a crowded D.C. pizza shop back in 2016 has died. Edgar Madison Welch was shot and Monday by police in Kannapolis, North Carolina, after he pulled out a gun during a traffic stop. 8 years ago, the so-called Pizzagate gunman entered Comet Ping Pong in Northwest with a revolver and rifle. He was searching for a non-existent child which he learned about from a right-wing conspiracy website. Welch was sentenced to prison and released back in 2021.
And while I believe that Ian gave an incredible summary of one perspective when it comes to Pizzagate, I also want to remind everybody that it wasn't just about the basement of Comet Pizza. It was also about the WikiLeaks emails from Hillary's campaign manager, John Podesta, and his brother, Tony, who were using FBI documented code words that were commonly used by PDF files. And they also had a spirit cooking dinner with the infamous Satanist, somebody that we've covered many times on this channel, somebody by the name of Marina Abramovich, who was very close to Zelensky and Jay-Z and was just appointed just a couple of years ago as ambassador position to rebuild schools in Ukraine. And this very rare news clip that I found gives an incredible summary of how to connect all of them in one. Check it out.
Unclassified FBI document. That document, according to the FBI, contains commonly used symbols by pedophiles to express their preference in children. I want you to see these images here. These are the images. Notice this one on the end, the triangle. That image signifies something called boy love. The pizza place next door to Comet Ping Pong Pizza, Besta Pizza, well, this was their logo until only a few weeks ago. Clearly, you can see that the Besta logo actually contains the same image, I'm going to show you again, as that boy image. Interestingly, after Pizzagate investigators pointed this out, Besta Pizza changed their logo, and there it is now. They removed the triangle. Also, Comet Ping Pong, owned by Alphantis, is the place where a number of performance artists perform regularly. Two of the groups that perform there, who you can see advertised, by the way, on this Comet Ping Pong poster, include a group called Heavy Breathing and another group called Sex Stains. Well, if you check out the YouTube videos by these bands, Heavy Breathing has songs that do joke about pedophilia, and the band Sex Stains has a video that includes, and you see it right there, that same boy symbol. It's nearly identical to the one that the FBI does say is a code symbol for boy love. As I said, there are some strange things there. As for the owner of the pizza place, James Alphantis, well, he was one time in a relationship with David Brock, who ran Media Matters for America. Well, since Pizzagate began to blow up online, he has made his Instagram profile, Jimmy Comet, private. But an archive search of Instagram reveals a number of strange photographs and words with strange and disturbing images associated with them. Look, to the point where we can't show you those pictures. We're not even going to describe them to you because some viewers would find it too disturbing to share on TV. Now let's talk about the Podesta brothers, because remember, it was John Podesta's email that was hacked. In those leaked Podesta emails, John Podesta talks about his close relationship with Dennis Hastert, the former Speaker of the House, who was recently sentenced to 15 months in prison for years ago. He was referred to by the judge as a serial. According to the Washington Post, visitors to Tony Podesta's home in
It then got, at the end, quite unusual because I started being asked about UFOs and a series of questions about Pizzagate, one of the most vile, bogus conspiracy theories that was propagated on the internet.
For you to dismiss this and to be upset that you were questioned about it and pretend that the word pizza wasn't literally referred or referenced almost 900 times in the Epstein files, as if we're supposed to, or we're expected to believe that all of these, some of the most richest, wealthiest, and most famous politicians and entrepreneurs and businessmen and women in Washington, D.C. and across the country are emailing each other about pizza, as if they don't have the connections and wherewithal to have much more expensive and higher quality food, such as caviar. We're expected to believe that they're talking about pizza, even though they're using the word pizza in different weird ways. It's a slap in our face. And I'm going to tell you now, I personally believe that all of this is a distraction. Yes, because nobody's going to be arrested. Nobody's going to go to jail over this. I think this is all entertainment because what's taking place with Iran, which we can talk about that in a different video if you all want to hear my thoughts on it. I believe that Donald Trump looks probably the most deflated and the most defeated that I've ever seen him before. But again, that's a conversation for another day. But speaking of President Trump, I do find it very interesting that Trump's name is literally mentioned in reference to Epstein throughout the Epstein files more than 38,000 times, yet he has not been called to a deposition. That's part of the distraction. while they have Hillary Clinton there, which I'm not here to take up for Hillary Clinton one way or the other, but the truth is, as far as we know, she don't have any connections to Epstein directly. But I'll tell you somebody who does. Another first lady, not Hillary Clinton, but another first lady, who from my understanding, Trump literally met through Epstein. So I know it's probably not the best thing for the country. It's not the best from an optics perspective. But the truth is, President Trump needs to be sitting in a deposition answering a litany of questions pertaining to his relationship with Epstein, both in the modeling world and outside it as well. But those are my thoughts, man. Y'all have in the comment section, let me know what you all think. Do you believe that Howard Lutnick, do you believe that President Trump will eventually be called in for a deposition? Do you believe any of this, even with the Clintons, will actually go somewhere? Even though I feel like I know your thoughts already and your answer to that question, hop in the comment section and let me know what you think, man. I'll catch you all in the next one. I'm Demetrius. I go by Didi. Peace.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.